Let's get it. Let's get it. We're back with the client launch episode, and I got my friend and most recent best-selling author, Danielle McDonough, in the house. And so I just want to give you a little backstory of Danielle, and then we're going to get into her actual story. So Danielle is an athlete mindset coach and the best-selling author of the book, The Empowered Athlete: Self-Confidence, Self-Acceptance, and Self-Worth, An Athlete's Guide to Excellence. Now, a little background on her, and then I'll let her do all the good stuff. She's a former D1 and professional athlete, which I can't wait for us to talk about. She received her BA in sociology from Providence College while on a full athletic scholarship for ice hockey. She's got her master's in sports and exercise psychology, so she knows what the heck she's talking about. So welcome to the show, Danielle.
Hi, Jake. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Of course. All right, so let's get into it. All right. You had an incredible career as an athlete, as someone who studied athlete, who someone studied sports psychology. Why did you want to write a book in the first place? And when in your career did you realize it was the most important time to do it?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think the book's always sort of been inside me. Well, at least since I've been I've been in this profession in the sports psychology space for the last 11 years or so now. I received my master's degree and actually started my practice while I was still in school, working on the mental side of performance with athletes. And I think I went that direction as a career path, just because of my personal experiences as an athlete myself, an elite athlete, as a youth athlete, a collegiate athlete, and a professional athlete. When I graduated from Providence College, I actually played professionally in the NWHL in Canada for 2 years, and then in Lugano, Switzerland for 2 years. And throughout my entire career, there were these, now looking back on it, invisible barriers, right? These obstacles that I needed to overcome, that I thought I could overcome through more reps, more practicing my slap shot in the garage. And yeah, to a certain degree, some of that needed to happen, right, with the skill set and everything. But a lot of what I experienced was mental, was mindset stuff. And I didn't know it back then. No one really did, to be quite honest. And so when I graduated and finally decided to retire, I knew I wanted to stay involved in sports somehow. And so I literally Googled jobs in sports, and and sports psychology came up as like this new thing that was emerging. And I said, that sounds amazing. And I can relate. I'm doing that. And so that's kind of how I got involved in this profession. And then, just in working with my athletes, and I just felt like I could be doing more and I could reach more. And I just, 2 years ago, I started a group program, and within that space is where I kind of started the idea I should write this book. And then 15 months ago, I did officially start, and it just published it in December. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and congratulations on publishing it. I know it was a long road, and we started working together right before the launch. And so we'll talk about all that and what that process looked like, because I love giving like the real behind the scenes stuff on this show. But talk to us about the book. What is it? I know you kind of give us the backstory, but what is the book all about? Who's it geared towards? And kind of let us know a little more insight into what people can expect.
Yeah, so I've really geared it towards the age range I work with, sort of my niche, I guess you could say. I will preface, I have worked with ages as low as 7 and as old as 54-ish, but my jam is really ages about 12 to 18. I just feel like there's a lot happening in those age range outside of sport too, with everything. And I just feel like sport is the vehicle that brings them to me, and I get to help them with so many other things beyond just those mental obstacles that they're facing. But essentially the book is, I call it like the ultimate self-paced step-by-step guide to propel their performance to the next level. And we do that through helping them build the confidence they need to be able to and give them the tools to be able to overcome any situation where adversity is involved, right? Whether that's quote unquote failures, mistakes, whatever, dealing with difficult coaches, losing, not playing well in their minds, and those sorts of things. So they're just not equipped with those tools. Like I wasn't when I was growing up. I mean, I didn't know how to deal with a tough loss. It's just like you were told to suck it up and move on. Well, how do I do that? So that's really what I do, is I teach them those tools to be able to do that while building confidence at the same time, so that they're they can walk through life more confident human beings.
I mean, this is such great stuff. And I have a very like strong affinity towards what you do in the book because I grew up playing sports.
Mm-hmm.
I played basketball in high school. Most of my friends played college ball and some
Mm-hmm.
turned pro. I then built an event where I helped NBA athletes sign their first contract. I've worked with, some of the best NBA players to ever play. Derrick Rose. I've worked with Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, like all of these people. And it's funny because when I look across the board, the mindset is one of the things that's most often overlooked, especially on the younger age when they're in that like 12 to 18 range or even in that college range. But it's one of the most pivotal things that can build momentum when you're getting into those decision years, aka the draft or the scholarship years. And so what are some of the tools that you teach or that you mention in the book that athletes really in that range, but I guess anyone who's an athlete can utilize to help build their mindset while playing sports?
Yeah. So a lot of the athletes that come to me, I would say all of them, 100% of the athletes that come to me are working through things. And, so what we do first, the analogy I like to give them is like we're tearing down the house. We tear down the whole house and we rebuild it from the foundation all the way up to the roof. And so we're sort of rebuilding their belief system and adjusting the way they talk to themselves and so on and so forth. And then from there, we go into the tangible tools that they can keep in their toolbox for, let's say, if they have a squeaky door or a window comes off the hinge, right? In this whole house analogy. So then they have these tools that they can implement at any time, whenever they need to, so that not only have we reframed the way they view themselves and themselves in their sport and what they're doing and in life or whatever, but now they have the tools, because it's not about eliminating adversity. We can't do that. That's perfection, and that doesn't exist. We don't live in a perfect world. There's always going to be things that come our way that make things hard for us, whether that's losing a game or getting fired or having to have a difficult conversation with eventually a coworker or whatever. So now they have these tools where they can deal with whatever that situation is to help them move past that in the future too. So that's kind of like the blueprint of what I do with the athletes in my program, and also what I do with the book too. But I do have, like, I created like a little confidence booster checklist that I, give to the athletes. So it's sort of like a check-in when they're going into something difficult or they feel themselves starting to, kind of shift out of that calm state. They can go through this checklist and, knock everything off. And it just sort of like helps to remind them, okay, I have these tools. Here I am. I'm fine. I'm breathing. I'm going through my process, my routine. And they usually can move forward at that point. So I actually can, we can include that in the show notes if you want. I have a link to it, and people can have that. It's really powerful. So it's just 5 things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll definitely get that linked up and give it to anybody who's interested in that. I'd love to know, with the book, when you're dealing with 12 to 18-year-olds, that's middle school and high school, and
the good years.
There's a mindset on their own, right? Like it's a different breed almost, right? And when you wrote this book, is the book aimed for them to pick it up and read it? Is it aimed for the parents to pick it up and read it? How did you navigate that as you were creating this book?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And it's been fascinating to go through this process, because, you develop a launch team, people who read the book ahead of time and kind of give you some feedback and, give you some good reviews and that sort of thing. I had people, all kinds of people on my launch team. I had former athletes, I had current athletes, I have parents of athletes, I have parents of parents of athletes, so, and across the board, well, minus my current athletes and, former athletes, because they don't know yet, but like from the parents and the parents of the parents, this book is for everyone, apparently, according to them. I mean, I've been asked to speak to oncology students, people have been coming to me saying, like, this book helps everyone. I'm using your tips. I'm doing this. And these are like people in their 60s. These are people in their 50s and their 40s. So to answer your question, I did write it for athletes. However, like I said before, sport is a vehicle that brings them to me, and I get to help them with such a wide array of things. And with that being said, it does help more than just athletes. So when people come to me and say, well, my child is 7, are they too young for this? And I say, no, just read it together. Because what we're doing with that is now the 7-year-old is starting to learn this stuff, but also the parent is learning, reading to the child, they're doing it together. So the parent can now go through these exercises on their own too, and, help themselves in whatever way they need help, but they're also getting an inside look into the mind of an athlete and potentially what athletes go through. Cause I do have a lot of stories in there of athletes and myself included. And so now they get to kind of see the behind the curtain. And so that was a very long-winded answer, but it's for everyone.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because I remember I had a friend, he got a college scholarship, played at an Ivy League school, and he went through a lot.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, it's incredibly difficult when you're experiencing these things to know what those things are. And then it's even tougher to talk to someone because you don't want to bring it up and then potentially get benched, or you don't want to bring it up and then the coach sees you differently. And so you're navigating this. But if you had someone to talk to, or if you had the resources that are in your book, it opens up so many other avenues of getting the help that you need so that you can perform at your peak, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I wish I had this when I was in high school, because I felt like, as most athletes do, we're on an island. We put ourselves on an island. We're the only ones experiencing this, right? Which is so not true. I wish I had this in high school because, like you said, there was still kind of is a stigma surrounding mental health and that sort of thing. And so to have something like this where nobody else has to know, it's just me reading it, going through the exercise, doing the work on my own, would have been amazing. Same thing in college. Coaches to have this would be awesome. Because like I said before, the inside, like the peek behind the curtain and how to deal with certain situations and what the athlete is experiencing. Because a lot of times they don't think about that, or maybe they try to, but because we're all different, their behavioral style is different than the athlete's behavioral style. So they're just not understanding. And so I think it's a really good resource to have just for life in general, especially if you're an athlete or someone involved with athletes.
And I think that's why this book continues to produce more opportunities than you even initially thought. And it will continue to do so for you because you wrote it for the athlete. But as I get older, I just turned 30. And I'm starting to hear all these stories from my parents about the parents of other kids when we were growing up. And I'm like, this is nuts. There's a whole nother world out there. And so for parents to have the access to this book, not only can they start to understand what their kids are going through, but they're also going to be able to understand how not to act, but also how to act to help their kids, in addition to understanding their kids, which I think is huge.
It is huge. And the same thing for coaches too.
Yep.
Because just because you're a coach doesn't mean you know everything, and doesn't mean you know how to, deal with, I guess, or communicate appropriately with each athlete, because not every athlete responds in the same way. So it's so important to coach the team, yes, but also each individual athlete as an individual. But yeah, I think you're right on that too. And it's interesting because in my head, when I started writing this book, it was a series. So I wanted to do the athletes first, then the parents, then the coaches, then maybe one for like younger kids. But that's kind of in my head where I'm going with this. But it's so interesting to get the feedback on this book and how this book has been so helpful for parents and coaches already. And I'm just kind of like, oh, well, maybe I won't have to write a whole new book. Maybe I just tweak things. But yeah, no, it is really good from that perspective, I suppose, for others, parents and coaches. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So before we transition into really talking about the book stuff
and
the nitty gritties of it, I want you to leave the listeners before this transition with your best, or one, I'm sure you have so many best, but one tip that somebody who considers themselves an athlete or who wants to understand athletes better, what is one thing somebody could do to build more confidence right after this?
I have 3. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. The first one, breathing. It's the gateway. It is literally magic in a bottle. If you can learn how to take deep breaths and give yourself something to neutral to think about while you're doing so, it will calm your mind and body down. Breathing is huge. The second thing, focus on the process, not the outcome. We're so outcome focused, meaning winning the game, scoring the goal, all of those things. Those are outside of our control ultimately, because there's other people involved, right? So focus on your process, and in doing so, a natural byproduct will be the outcome you desire, right? Not in every case, but that's we can talk about that forever. And then the third thing, watch your language. Language is so important. Add yet to the end of a sentence. I can't run a mile yet. right? Instead of saying, I'm so nervous, say, I'm so excited. It instantly changes the way your brain perceives things, how you interpret it, and it puts you in a more positive state of mind. So breathe, focus on the process, not the outcome. Watch your language. It's important.
I love those, and I have to comment on them now, of course. And the breathing thing is interesting. The minute you said breathe, the first thing that I did was I started to be aware of my breath.
Yep.
Right. And I've read so many books about breathing and the right way to do it, but it's funny because it's the thing that keeps us alive, the thing that we do more than anything else in the world, yet it's the thing we arguably pay the least attention to in our body and in the daily motions that we live. And so I can't be the only one who, when you said breathe, I was like, oh, am I breathing? Like let me get centered again. And then, the language, one of the things that I always saw with our athletes who were competing for the NBA rosters was not just their language, but in how they spoke to their teammates, their coaches, and the staff, but it was their body language as well.
Yes.
Right.
100%. 100%.
And it was, okay, if I'm the last guy on the bench, am I going to act like the last guy on the bench, or am I going to act like the guy who's fighting for my spot and going to do anything to help the team win? And it's these small things that when you do these repeatedly, especially as an athlete, you produce results faster and at a higher level than your peers and the people you compete with. So just absolutely wonderful stuff. And I do know we could continue to go on and on and on about this
forever.
stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody can go buy your book if they want to go do that. The Empowered Athlete. Go get Danielle's book, right? But I want to talk about, you were working on this for a while. There were some things that you were kind of trying to work through when we first connected about potentially working together. So where were you at before, in your process, before me and you started working together?
So right when I contacted you, I was in the editing phase, I believe. So I had written the book, which, to be honest, I thought was going to be the hard part. That was the easy part of the whole process. Transferring into that next stage where things, we talk about things that are out of our control. All of that stuff was essentially out of my control. Like I just gave my manuscript to people and they did their thing, but I would set deadlines in my head that I just had no business setting because I had no idea what I was doing. So that's kind of where I connected with you, where I was just like waving the white flag, like I am at a loss. I don't know what to do. Things were kind of tough in the what's it called, the formatting phase of it all, and the launch process. Like I had no idea where to even start with that. So that's kind of where you and I connected, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And then we kind of started chatting, and I was like, okay, here's kind of the plan that you kind of need to go through, and let's see if we can make this as like seamless and as easy as possible for you. Let's try to give you that like sense of relief.
Yes.
Right. And so once we started working together, what happened and how did it change the way you felt about this project leading up to your launch?
Yes. So as you know, I'm an athlete, right? I consider myself to be pretty coachable. I would say extremely coachable. You tell me what to do and I will do it. And so that's what I needed. That's what I was essentially missing. And so when you and I connected on that first Zoom, I told you where I was and I told you how I felt and how I was just feeling lost with the process. And you literally gave me step by step what to do next over the next, I think it was 2 weeks before we connected again. And getting off of that Zoom, I'll never, I cried. I just felt so relieved and so like I had direction now. I had actual deadlines that like I knew I could follow because I had some control back. And it was just, I just started checking them off. I just started doing exactly, I still have my papers like literally sitting in front of me there of like my list. I just started going through the list. This is what Jake wants me to do. So this is how I'm going to do it. And I just checked it off. And then, we met again, and then you gave me some more action items to do. And I think that was the biggest thing for me is like, I needed someone to that knew what they were doing and had been there before and could point me in the right direction, and B, just tell me what to do. Like literally tell me what to do and I will do it. And that's what you did.
Yeah. And I got to say, as your coach in that process, you were extremely coachable, right? You knew you had a problem that needed to be solved. You knew what you needed, which was help, and you got the help. And then you did what I said. And all of a sudden, a couple months later, you're stress-free and your book's getting ready to be launched, right? Which is awesome. So once we started going through the step-by-step process, for people that have never gone through this, it can kind of feel like it's really overwhelming if you don't have the right guidance, right? And I would love for you to kind of tell us, when we started talking about your launch, what did you decide to do for your launch? Did you just launch it online? Did you do a launch party? Like, how did you bring your book to the world?
Well, I think it is worth noting too, like when the first time we talked, I launched my book a month later, like literally. Which to me is fast. Like I was not expecting, I was thrilled with that. That was so exciting for me. So that was another thing. Like I had been given so much information on different types of launches and how to go about doing things that I was so overwhelmed. And when I'm the type of person, I know myself pretty well, when I'm overwhelmed, I just don't do anything because I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So you broke down each option for me. And what was also helpful for me too was you gave me what you thought based off of where I was and how, and your opinions on where I was and the type of book I was doing and it being my first book and stuff like that. And so you suggested a launch party, which in the back of my mind, I wanted to do because you said, this is your first book, you should do that. And so that's what I did. Like we did the launch party. It was awesome. I had so many people that I love come and just support me. And that was really, really exciting. We also did the advertisements and stuff, which I would have never been able to do on my own. Again, you giving me that checklist and things to follow and a timeline and do this one on this day and do this one on this day, just made it easy for me to just sort of plug all of that in. And what was an extremely stressful thing became so easy, so much so to where I was like, I feel like I should be doing something right now, and so it was just like, it was a total game changer. And so, I had the successful launch. I hit bestseller, like, I think even before I officially launched, because people were not listening to me and waiting, they were buying the book ahead of time, which is fine. And I think, it was such a whirlwind, but in the best way.
Yeah. And so what were some of the results? You mentioned bestseller. Do you know how many categories you ended up becoming a bestseller in?
Honestly, there were too many to count. I know it was over 10. And I don't mean to say that, like, I'm very excited about that. I was not expecting that at all. But yeah, it was definitely like over 10 and best-selling in sports psychology, which I was really, really proud of and excited for. But different kinds of coaching, football coaching, hockey coaching, soccer coaching, baseball coaching, like all these coaching ones, which was really cool. And then, like experimental psychology was one, but yeah, just like so many but the sports psychology one and the hockey one those two made me really, really proud.
Yeah, that's so cool because there's ways, don't get me wrong, like I know strategies to help navigate this game. I mean, that's what I study, that's what we teach, but it's really, really cool when, we try to stay in as much integrity as we can, and when you're uploading your book to Amazon and you can pick the different categories, you could really, in theory, put your book in any category that you want to tilt the odds in your favor. But one of the things that irks me about that is people put their books that are in categories completely unrelated to their book just for the hope that the algorithm will let them be a bestseller. And that's frustrating and not an integrity. And so to hear you talk about the categories that you became bestseller in, but especially the one sports psychology and hockey, like that is exactly who your clientele is, what your expertise is in, the study about it. I mean, that was exactly where you wanted to go. And I saw the success and I was just like, this is exactly what you wanted to happen. It was supposed to happen. And so since the book came out, what have been some of the wins that are starting to pile up here for you now that the book's out? The book at launch is really just the beginning. So now that it's out, what are some of these amazing wins that have started to come your way?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Like I've been asked to speak at so many different events, like and things that I would never expect, like the oncology students one. That was like so exciting for me because it just really shows you, because we're performing every day. Every day we're performing in something, and they're no different. They have to go and administer medicine to cancer patients. That's really, really hard, and so to have someone be like, these students are stressed and they need some tips for mental performance. Will you come talk to them? I was just like blown away by that and so honored to be asked to do that. There's that. I'm actually the Anaheim Ducks, the NHL team, they're having their inaugural Women in Sports night this weekend, actually, that of this recording. I don't know when this is going to be aired, but and they asked me to be a mentor at that. So I get to talk to other young athletes who are graduating from college or whatever, looking to enter the sports industry in some way. And, I've been asked to talk to teams and, just so many different opportunities that I really wasn't expecting. I've been asked to come speak at banquets and stuff like that. So it's just really kind of cool to see all of this unfolding. And of course, all the pictures people are sending me, like, I just got your book in the mail. I can't wait to read it. Like that, just like tears come to my eyes every time someone said, like every time. I'm hoping that will fade at some point, the tear part, but like literally every time I get so excited when people pick up my book and I'm so excited to read it, or they tell me what a difference it's already making and they're like only on chapter 2. And it's just really been surreal and special and just honestly everything I had hoped for when writing it. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. It's like we always say, it's bigger than a book. And you're experiencing that to the nth degree right now. And for those of you that are listening right now or watching this, all of this hasn't been years since her book came out. Her book came out a month and a half, 2 months from when this episode is going to be released. So think about all of the things she just said, and now imagine if that could happen to you in 1.5 to 2 months from when you launch your book. So you've just crushed it. Lives are being impacted. You're changing the way athletes are playing their games. You're empowering parents and coaches and families. And I mean, it's so much bigger than just the book.
Yeah.
But for people that are listening right now, how do they get the book? Where do they go? And how do they follow you, learn from you, hire you, and all those good things?
Yes. So the book is on Amazon, paperback and Kindle edition. So you can get it on Amazon, The Empowered Athlete. You can follow me on social media at Danielle __ McDonough. There's 2 underscores in there. I have a Facebook group. You can email me, Danielle@ocppt.com or just empoweredathlete.com. I love getting emails from people. I love answering questions and helping in any way that I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I've loved digging in, nerding out about sports, performance, psychology, and obviously about your book. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, truly. And thank you for all your help with the whole process for me. Truly, you changed everything for me, and I'm so appreciative.
Awesome. I appreciate you saying that. And for you guys that are listening right now, if you enjoyed listening to Danielle's story, make sure to go pick up a copy of her book. If you are an athlete, get her book. If you are a parent, get her book. If you are a coach, get her book. If you just want to help kids get there, get her book. I mean, let me just tell you one thing. Get her book. All right. And if you enjoyed it, communicate with her. Let her know your favorite message and takeaway. I appreciate you for listening to this. Danielle, I appreciate you for being here. And with that said, everybody, I will see you on the next one.